I'm Victor. Hello, it is me. My full name is Victor Brium. I'm the creative director and co-founder of a company in Denmark, a worker-owned cooperative called Indoor Sunglasses. I do writing, design, some programming, some lighting, some 3D scanning, some fundraising, some PR. We're a small team, as you can see, of these lovely people who were the co-creators of Minddiver. You can find more about me on my website and see the past games that I've made, and yeah, a bit more details. You can find me on Blue Sky and LinkedIn if you want to talk with me or follow along. Yeah, but most of all, I'm here to say a big thank you to the big contest and to the jury and the lovely hosts here for choosing Minddiver for a game award. We thought Clair Obscur had won all of the awards, but it seems there was one left for us. So thank you, Jeff Keighley, and thank you to everyone here and to our team. The game was funded by public funds in Denmark and also by our Japanese publisher, Playism. So also a big thanks to all of the people involved in organizing these institutions. And now I'll show you a trailer for the game.
Okay, hold it, pose. Hold it. Hold it. Cheese.
Cheese.
Welcome back, Diver. This case reaches way beyond just a regular disappearance. Fix Lena's memories so that we can hopefully locate Sebastian.
What is this?
It was an accident.
What happened?
Sometimes you can't see true beauty until it becomes a memory.
I need to know what's going on with him.
I've been in love with you since that moment. I wish that we could just go back to that time.
You have one new message.
Hey, Lena. I'm sorry I left like that. It shouldn't have happened like this. I wanted to tell you that I love you.
Shit.
All right. Thank you. And I'm going to talk about Minddiver, I promise. But first, just a small aside here about innovation, because I was told that we won the most innovative game award. So I'm going to talk a little about innovation and then how we did innovate for Minddiver and how I think we might be able to innovate in better ways going forward. So innovation, a very simple definition that you could use for innovation is new ideas that create new value. Usually when we talk about this, we're talking about economic value. So a way to increase the profits of a company or a way to get a competitive advantage. But I don't think that's what, when you get an award here, I don't think if you look at the sales of Minddiver, I think you can find other games on Steam that probably succeeded more in this regard. So I don't think this is what we're talking about today. I think we're talking about maybe something like innovating in the experiential value of the game and of the entire experience or of details in that. And I think there is a problem with innovation and that is, well, first off, let me say I love new ideas, I love newness. I grew up reading like illustrated science magazines, and my favorite part of the newspaper is still like the part that's just, in Danish newspaper, there's like this section about just ideas. But I have come to terms with the fact that innovation is always happening in service of something else. and that can be valuable or it can be harmful. And if we're all living in a time right now with giant American tech companies wreaking havoc on our world, often in service or in the guise of innovation. So I think it's worth asking, what are our experiences in service of? Why are we innovating? What are we trying to push and improve when we are innovating? And I think indie games are at a point right now where we're always caught in indie games between needing to sell games that support us, and there are strong market forces for that, and then we have creative ambitions, and I think right now there is a huge maybe imbalance towards the first part, towards the profit turning. And it's a trap that we can fall into. So just to push a little bit in the other direction, for myself at least, I try to make a list here of things that I think push in the direction of like a shared benefit for players and for all of us, versus things that are just in the service of individual gain at the cost of others. So bear with me, this is a list in progress. This is a thought process that I'm inviting you into, so please come up and tell me afterwards how I'm wrong about this. But I'll run through this pretty quickly. I think if you're making, I would like to see more empowering experiences instead of reproduction of oppressive ideas. I would like to see critique of systems and culture rather than comforting ideas that comfort the powerful. I would like to see sanctuary and recognition of real lived experiences where you feel the creator at the other end had a heartbreak maybe that you also had, instead of ignorance of events or erasure of experiences. I'd like to see solidarity over self-interest. I'd like to see games that nurture curiosity instead of validating the apathy of players. I would like to see more interesting explorations of the weird quirks of our universe and of computers, rather than uninspired copying. I would like to improve games that push for systems literacy instead of the decline into illiteracy and anti-intellectualism. I'd like to see games that are world-facing, that want to interact with the world and want to be about the world rather than looking away from the world and escaping away. I'd like to see more complexity and nuance in themes instead of oversimplification. And then on a more meta level, let's try and see if we can use fewer resources, respect player time instead of harvest it, build social trust and respect instead of social hatred and toxicity, and then also build shared ownership instead of worker exploitation. That's my big laundry list. So thank you for the single clap. So enough of my rant, back to Minddiver. How did we innovate? And then I'll also try and answer this question at the end without any bias at all. But Minddiver started out with a deep love of detective games. Some of you will know this game, Return of the Obra Dinn, which was the closest touch point for Minddiver, and something Obra Dinn is amazing at is making you feel really smart and making you solve complex deductions, and we loved that. But I also wanted to add another layer to this, so I wanted something that tickles your brain, like Obra Dinn, but also is capable of blowing your hearts to smithereens. And so these were the creative goals we were working with, creating a deduction game with greater emotional impact, weaving meaningful themes of failing relationships and how we treat our past into the story of the game, and creating intentional visuals that support the fantasy and themes and stand out. So I'll go through like 3 different subjects where we did some innovations, and I'll show on the left the closest reference, the closest kind of touch point we were building upon. For the genre, it was Return of the Obra Dinn. And there, Lucas Pope made a game with lots of characters in it. And to focus more on the emotional journey, we focused in on 2 main characters and put most of the time there. In Oberdin, all the puzzles are about solving a death. Who was the killer? How did it happen? And who was the victim? And in Mind Diver, because we knew we were going to have more slice-of-life scenes, we built something where any kind of scene could be a puzzle. And finally, Oberdin, you fill in the blanks in a book. You answer the killer's name and so on in a book. To try and improve immersion, we made the puzzle solving in the 3D space. So you fill in the blanks in a 3D space. For the setting, the closest touch point was Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, where they have a machine to erase memories, and in Mind Diver we have a machine that lets you restore memories. Great innovation. And in Sunshine they have like these detached dream logic spaces when they're going through memories. And in Mind Diver we built this fully immersive open space. And then on the visuals, as you saw in the trailer, we did 3D scans for most of the visuals with an app called Polycam. And there was this movie, a VR movie actually, that is a Danish movie, the one in the Vienna Biennale, which did volumetric video, and we talked with the creators of this a couple of times. Instead of volumetric video where you need several cameras as a setup, in Mind Diver we just did these still scenes in End of Night. They do soft normals on their 3D models. In Mind Diver we did hard normals to draw out the edges and the faces of the geometry to make the flaws in the scans look more intentional. And in End of Night, it's pure photogrammetry with some effects mixed in. In Mind Diver, it was a mix of the photogrammetry with a bigger, regular 3D world. Some of the creative challenges that we ran into while making this was, so the first was nailing the core interaction. So this was, we started out with something that was more like Ace Attorney, where you have a statement, it's like the whole memory making a statement about what's true, and then you would come with another object and challenge the truth of that. But that was pretty unintuitive for players. It never really meshed. So after a long time, we finally arrived at this fill in the blanks. There's this black hole in a scene that you need to fill out. Polishing the art style also took several years before we were happy with where it landed. One of the key things was just figuring out what are these scans made of in universe. And when we finally just figured out, oh, it's just data, it just made it easier to build a coherent visual language. Then we had a lot of constraints. This is a sort of realistic, grounded story. The gameplay structure puts a lot of limit on how we can design the puzzles. Every object that could be a potential solution for a puzzle had to be scanned, so it had to be objects we could find in the real world. And also the game's features is fully voice acted, so there was time limits and schedules, which put a lot of constraints on the puzzles. Finally, the clarity of the gameplay, we didn't always land this one. I'm not just talking about in the game, I'm also talking about outside of the game. The gameplay is not always that easy to understand fast when seeing the game in the wild. So some mistakes to learn from, too many design constraints. There is such a thing. I used to think design constraints was just a great thing for creativity. You can't have too much. We had some misleading playtests early, which kind of muddied how hard we thought the difficulty was. And this, I think, is maybe a common thing of the game being buggy and unpolished, and then we thought the puzzles were too hard, but it ended up that the puzzles were probably a bit too easy in the end. And a more meta one, if you're starting a company, get the shareholder agreement in place very quickly. This led to the most trouble that we were slow at creating that. Some things I'm glad that we did was focusing on fewer characters and not having animations, which definitely saved on production time. And also that we kept trying to improve the universe cohesion every time there was internal logic that didn't mesh. We worked on that, and every time we did that, it improved the player understanding. And also, equal ownership is awesome. We had everyone invested into the project, and the outcomes of the project equally, and ups and downs were shared among everyone. So, back to this list. Let me try, see if I can use this to judge our own game here. What was to answer, was this work in service of something I think is valuable? So, was the experience, what was we aiming at achieving? We're trying to build this resonance about grief and failing relationships. I'll mark that as, like, under each of these is like a thing from the list. So this is what I would mark as like building a recognition of some experience. We were aiming at satisfying logical deduction. I'll put that under building curiosity with players, reflecting on our relationship with the past, which is about the world and about how our society and we as people treat our past. And then finally, it was also in the interest of making some money, advancing our careers, but also building a worker co-op. And the first two are definitely self-interest, and the last one is in the realm of solidarity. Where did the innovations focus? So adding emotional resonance, building a setting that was more immersive, but also has the speculative fiction element of thinking a bit about the future. I put that as like, that's a sort of a double-edged blade of wanting to escape into something which is sort of world-rejecting, but using that to try and look out at the world, which is world-facing. For the visuals, there's some of the same immersion and speculative fiction, and also we saved some resources with the style we did. So in conclusion, a pat on the back for me. I think it was generally in the service of shared benefit, but I'm also, when looking back at it, I'm also having this great feeling that we could have done it in stronger ways. And we are going to be working on that alongside building our business. Some things that we're thinking about now is building more radical, empowering, world-facing themes into our games, doing deeper, complex explorations of those themes, and then having greater reach and greater craft to amplify that effect. And also strengthen our basis in the cooperative principles that we founded the company on, and more promotion on the corporate, so when we talk about the company, talk more about the cooperative values. And then trying to reduce the resources that we use when making our games. And since I'm here in the Basque country, and did I push the microphone? Can you still hear it? Yes, great. There's this rich history here of worker-owned cooperatives. I haven't heard so much about in the game industry itself, but in a lot of other places. So I come here with a great amount of humility on this subject here, but just want to share our experience, a little bit of our experience here at the end of being a worker-owned cooperative. But before that, for the people who are not entirely clear on what I mean when I say worker co-op, just a quick explainer. So regular companies usually look something like this. It's what I call a minority-owned company. You have an owner or a few owners who own maybe a holding company, and that company owns the operation company, which employs a group of employees. There is in this an inbuilt tension, an inbuilt conflict between the employees and the owners. There's just different interests, even when everyone is trying their best at working together. There easily becomes different incentives for work. In a worker-owned cooperative, there are a group of owners, again, maybe a holding company owning an operation company, but then the operation company employs that same group of people, and that it makes for more shared interests in the outcome of your work. What's different from like doing it as a minority-owned company for us is everyone is involved in the strategy and policy. Some call this the democratic boardroom. Directors can be voted out, and calling back to that shareholder agreement issue I mentioned earlier, we did end up needing this because of an internal conflict early on, and the easy part of that was the part that was democratic. The hard part of that was the part that was not democratic. That was where we really faced a crisis. And then this you can choose to have in a normal company, but it's rare to see. But we choose to have equal salaries for all. There's some exceptions, but generally equal salaries. We decide together how revenue is distributed, whether it's reinvested or it's shared. What's the same? Pretty much everything else. We make games, we work, we sell games, we negotiate, we market, all of that jazz. And we also worked on Minddiver with a hierarchy, divided responsibilities in the development, clear lines of who makes what decisions for efficiency and a clear vision. But for the next game, we are also working on making the development more collaborative and closer to closer to something you might call a shared vision. I hope the Minddiver also had a shared vision, but lacking the right word here. And some things we learned from this was make it more democratic. As I said, the main challenges we had came from the parts that were not democratic. You need to educate everyone if you're running a company like this. Everyone needs to have a base understanding of company agreements and of company governance and business. But it does end up being a huge strength because everyone knows what's going on in the company. Everyone knows how their role can best fit into what we're trying to really achieve. And we also learned that it's fine to talk about, which is why I'm talking about it today. At the beginning, we were advised to not talk too much about this because we were told investors and publishers would run away screaming. What we have learned is we are not really working in a way where we think it makes sense to have an investor. It wouldn't suit our way of working. And publishers in general have not cared at all. Publishers are much more interested in the quality of the game and if it looks like a game that people want to play and buy, and if we can deliver that, of course. And then we learned that we need to collaborate more with other co-ops and organizations. In Denmark, we're now part of this cooperative København, which is like the local network group for cooperatives in Copenhagen. Here in the Basque country, you have this organization called Olatokop, which are friends with this Copenhagen organization. And I saw a talk by Olatokop in Copenhagen. They're pretty incredible people, I think. And what's next for us? We will try to make a game that takes some of these struggles that we face in our daily lives, try to weave that, supercharge that in the themes of our next game. We're thinking about this super co-op of co-op idea, sort of like a commonly owned publisher thing. It's early thoughts, and then we're trying to solve the issue of freelancers, which is complicated. So what am I? Yeah. I'm going to skip this, but this is just about freelancers, how to involve them in a good way. And having a sort of shared structure between several co-ops is one way that we're thinking of potentially coordinating freelancers, but also building shared resources, building branding, building an ethos of how we work that people can recognize and also stand more strongly in negotiations with, for example, platforms. and then the freelancers could have an ownership stake in this. But I would love to hear your thoughts, and if you are also thinking about this, please come and tell me how this is a bad idea, or what would be good about this, or how to do it better, because we're very early in these thoughts. That was it. Please say hi, find me here on these things, or find our company on these links. And we just created a newsletter for our continued journey as a co-op, so you can scan that one and sign up for the newsletter if you so desire. Thank you so much for the award and for the time here so that I could share some thoughts, and have a lovely conference.